I am going to run a backtesting session on NQ on today's price action at the New York session, and today's August 4th, 2025. So we're going to start by looking into the higher time frame, in this case the 1 hour time frame, which based on my current system is what I call a C2 time frame. In this case, this is what we are looking at here on the left, and what we can see from here is that we were having a very well-defined bullish move into the market, and then we had around Thursday of last week we had a bearish momentum coming in. I actually labeled all this or I actually labeled this bearish cycle here from the validation of the distribution MB until MMB4, which in this case was not validated. Price actually came up to the high but did not close in this case above this bullish high. So this was never validated for me, and from this point this would be here's around the close of last Friday's session, and from there we had this movement of price where during the overnight session it came above the MAs on the C2 time frame. So what I basically did here today before the session started was I labeled this high here as an accumulation MB, as I saw in this case price kind of going sideways around this area, and as it moved above in this case this is the 5 EMA, then I saw EMAs kind of turning upwards. So basically this is what I saw in order to label this as an accumulation MB. Then after that I saw price continuing. All of this was during overnight session. Came to this point here around 3-4 a.m. in the morning, and then made some sort of flush into the EMAs, which were kind of both crossing at this point here. So my guess at this moment was that this high would be working as a momentum MB on my C2 time frame. So at this point I would be willing to look into possible buys into the market, as we were having price above rising EMAs on our higher time frame, in this case the 1 hour. When I take a look at our context time frame, which is the 10-minute, what I see is basically again a bullish move, which started around here. This is basically the end of New York session last Friday, and from there we saw this bullish move, and then during the overnight session we saw price again rising, and then more recently here we saw some flush that came under the EMAs here. This was around 1 hour before market open. So I saw this as some sort of stage 1, and again my expectancy would be to see price continuing the in this case the bullish move. So what I did was I started labeling here right before the session, as I saw this as a stage 1, so some sort of consolidation of price around this area. I labeled this as an accumulation MB, which was actually validated before New York started. as we can see here, this was the high that I defined for my accumulation MB, and we saw that there was actually a candle close above this high with this candle right here. With this candle, we had a candle close above this high, so that was basically my confirmation for this accumulation MB. So this was around 7 a.m. that happened, around 9 a.m. New York time. So from there, I then tried to see if I could also label on my validation time frame, in this case here, where we had the most recent move around here. We had some flush, some retracement on our validation time frame. From there, price came above the EMAs. Here once again came below after some sort of cycle, some sort of bull cycle that occurred here. And then most recently we had here an accumulation which was validated. Then we came around here, we had some candle close below the EMAs, and then some price action around this box, around this area. So basically right before the session started, I labeled this point here, or this high here, as my accumulation MB on the validation time frame. So basically what I was expecting was to see candle close above this high, and actually that again happened right before the session started. So with this candle, this accumulation MB was validated. So from here, right before the session started, I would be looking for basically a cycle, a bullish cycle into the validation time frame, so that within the flushes that would came out of MMB1 through MMB4, I could be looking into possible entries on this market. So this is basically the start of, or I mean the analysis that I made right before the session, just to make myself aware of what the market has been doing and how basically what I am expecting to happen for me to take an entry. So this is basically where we are now. So from here, I'm gonna just replay price, and we will be looking into possible entries if there are setups in this case that we can follow. So this is the start of the New York session, an aggressive move to the upside. I will probably give a few minutes here to see what happens, and then decide what we could be doing here. So what I am interested to see here is, as we are above rising MAs on C2, above rising MAs on the context time frame, and above this accumulation MB, and as we are seeing the start of a bullish cycle on the validation, I am expecting to see some sort of pause here, some sort of flush, so I can follow that here on the entry time frame. So let's play this. So at this point we had this move which came back here around this area here, but this was just around 1-2 minutes after the open, so this is not a price action that I will usually consider for an entry. So let's wait and see what happens. So we start seeing a move as expected, and as we had this pause here, even though that was not an area for me to consider an entry, what I am gonna do is I am gonna label this here as an MMB1, and then continue to look for possible entries out of this. So let's continue. Again, what I will be looking for here is at some point here on this, as price is rising, I would like to see it stop and then price to start coming here to the 10 or the 20 EMA, and then start building some sort of double MB that I could take here to the upside through double MB buy stop at this high. This would be some sort of my intention to get an entry. So let's keep on playing price. At this point, price just keeps on rising without a stop, without a pause. Now we start to see our first intention to pause. Here we are getting price from this point to here, basically come into the 5 EMA, and based on my current system, this is not an entry that I am willing to take, even though you could argue and it's 100% possible to consider this pause here for an entry. But for my basically backtesting results, I see that most of the time when I consider entries out of the 5 EMA, for me, they fail. So what I am most interested to see is a flush that would come at least to the 10, or in the best case scenario to the 20, before we start to look into a possible entry. So at this time, I'm just gonna keep on playing this. So price comes a little bit deeper, but still not at the 10 EMA. So someone could already be drawing this, which is the containment line, but I wouldn't be using this at this point due to the fact that we haven't touched or at least get closer to the 10 EMA. So price, this is the first time that price gets above the containment line. Then we had quite a move to the downside here, and we are actually closing below the EMA. So sometimes that's a reason for me in this case to avoid this sort of entries, besides the fact, again, as I already said, about the EMA. But well, let's see how this would go. Yeah, so in this case, for someone that plays with just a touch of the 5 EMA, this here through MMB1, you could say, yeah, MMB1, MMB2, this one here could have been an entry, or even this one here, MMB1 and MMB2, a buy stop through this high would have been a good entry, and at this time the trade would be probably at break even. But well, I'm gonna just erase this containment line. Just wanted to show what is possible to take using also the EMA. But for this video and overall for my own system, I will always wait at least for a touch of the 10. I'm sorry. So let's keep on playing this. So at this point, I would say that actually that flush that we saw from the 5 is our MMB2. So we're gonna label that as well here. And now we're gonna keep on looking into possible entry on this cycle now from what could be the formation of MMB3. So price goes above a bit and then starts Here we have a move to the 5 and then again continues the upside move. Still no sign of an MMB 3. So now we're kind of seeing a pause right here. There's one bearish candle there, a touch of the 5. Now I wait and I wait for a touch of the 20. So now I am, based on my system and my rules, I can start looking into a possible entry, in this case a buy, based on my overall alignment with the different time frames that I use. So I'm gonna kind of trying to draw the containment line here. This one would be the line that I would use at this point here. I would wait for price to come above this high here. So price comes again to test the 10 EMA. So we're getting a reaction from this EMA, and now we are starting to see the EMAs on our entry time frame to start turning around from going downwards to going upwards, which is a good sign. And actually there is the buildup of one MMB here. So this is MMB1. We had price come above the containment line. Right now it's below again, but I will wait to see if there is an MMB2 formed. So at this point, this is fully valid. We could say that this here is MMB2, so that's a double MB, and I would place an entry here through a long, through a buy stop here, just above this high, with my stop loss around this area here. So price comes here down a bit more. Our MB2 would then be this one here. Now we can see that these two MBs are very similar in terms of their sizes, which is something nice, not a must for every entry, but it's nice that we do not get MBs that are too much different in sizes and apart from each other. So this is kind of good at this point. So at this time, I'm still considering this buy stop. The stop loss would be located right here, so a little bit under the EMAs and just at these MB2, this momentum MB2 low, so that would be fully valid for an entry. So that's a tap in. What do we get at that point? We're moving straight in our direction. So this here, I'm just gonna put now the label on the validation time frame. This here would be MMB3. And at this time we would be running this trade. I'm just gonna place this at 1 to 3, which is my usual take profit right there. So now let's see how price would run. There was some retracement at this point, and then price went above this high here. So at this point, I would move on the close of this candle, I would move the stop loss of this trade from the current initial position. I would move the stop to break even. So at this point, this becomes a free trade where there is no risk on the table, just the potential to reach our take profit or whatever management we end up getting. So just gonna put this one so this only shows on my entry time frame. Okay, so let's keep on playing price. Price keeps on rising, keeps on rising. Now we almost came up to our take profit. But now we are getting some sort of pullback here. We are getting a candle close below the EMAs. So this becomes now preference. There's someone who could at this point say, I'm gonna close the trade at this point as I have a close below the EMAs. Or you can just let the trade run if it wants to come back to your break-even point, or just let it flush a little bit deeper here for the potential in this case to keep on running. So that's a decision that each trader has to make based on the system and the management rules that each one has. So in this case, we are currently on MMB3. So there is certainly still potential for this trade to come a little bit further, or a little bit higher in this case. And in terms of the current validation cycle, we had the bounce from our, in this case, the 10 EMA. Price came up, and actually this candle here, I believe this candle closed above the above this high. So this actually would validate MMB3. So MMB3 would be fully validated at this point. So there's the chance that this flush could come once again to the 10, to the 5, the 10, and even the 20 as part. Even though this is validated, if price keeps on this area, I would still consider all this here as part of MMB3. So seeing that, I would say it is pretty much possible for price to keep on going downwards in this case. And if it came to the 10 EMA, it would mean that it would be a break-even trade. So if I take a look at this point where we are on this close, this is a 1.1 R. So based on that, I would make in this case the decision to close at this point because of there was a candle close below the EMA at this point. So that would be my reasoning in this case to take a plus 1.2 R on this move. 1.19, yeah, basically 1.2 are on this move. So this is the point I would be closing, and after that, let's see how this would have played out. Price is getting closer to our break-even point, and it would have stopped us out at break-even. So again, that's something that's preference for someone who would see the potential here. It certainly is, and there is a chance that price could get here and from here move into the expected direction. But now this is in this case based on the study of the recent price action, how it moved, and basically what we consider is more probable to happen. So this would be the first trade on the session. From there, we had the move to our take profit, but in this case after having basically kicked us out at break even. Price never came here to our stop loss, but due to the fact that we had this flush and then came higher, and even here there was some sort of flush that came here, there would be no in this case there would be no reason for us to keep our stop loss at the original point. So this is again based on management rules. In this case, this management rule, if we had kept the trade open, it certainly went to our take profit point. But this is a matter of basically trading exactly by the rules that we have. So in my case, I have this rule to break even, or I have my rule where if I go over 50% of my original drawdown and come back to break even or entry point, I close the trade as break even. So there are certain rules that you have to make and basically trade by them no matter what. It doesn't matter in this case I decided to close here due to my analysis. It doesn't matter if the trade basically made whatever it wants to do after that. So that's important for us to note in this case in every trading decision that we make. So let's keep on seeing what price does in this case. Now we are at a validated MMB3. So what's left for us here to look for is a probable or possible entry at an MMB4, and then I would consider the move on the validation extended, and I would wait probably for a reset. So let's keep on watching this. Right now we're 30 minutes into the session. And basically throughout these first 30 minutes we made this impulsive move to the upside. So now we are here at what could be MMB4. I'm just gonna label it for now. So this is MMB4. And it's interesting to note here that the sizes of each one of these moves after MMB is validated is pretty much similar. So from here to here is basically the similar sizes of previous moves. So it's not strange to think or to consider that there would be some sort of flush here to the 5, 10, or 20 before we make a final move into the validation of MMB4 if price wants to move that way. So here we came up to this high, and then it's kind of difficult here to establish a containment line. The best one that we could use at this point would be this one here. And we still, in this case, have to wait to see what it's gonna happen. So price keeps on flushing. Now it's giving some reaction out of the 20 EMA. Once again, it's coming to the containment line right here. This one here could be a possible entry, as we are having in this case MMB1, which was validated, and now we're having here MMB2, where we could have a buy stop above the containment line and above, in this case, what we assume could be rising MA. So we have to just wait for that. In this case, I would erase, if I had placed a buy stop here, I would erase that, as I am once again coming below the EMAs, and now the EMAs are kind of going sideways. So I skip this setup so far at this point and see what will go from this point onwards. So yeah, at this point, the original entry, which was through this buy stop, would have been triggered here. But again, this is not something that I am used to trade, because of the fact that there was a strong candle here close below the EMAs, and the EMAs were kind of going sideways at that point. So I'm just gonna wait a little bit to see what price actually does. If it goes here without me, there's nothing for me to do, and if it comes a little bit deeper or into the 20 for a clearer entry opportunity, that's something that I would follow. Yeah, so in this case, that's the reason why I'm not happy to enter at this point. This would have been an entry point for me to get into drawdown. I don't know if this would have been enough for being over 50% drawdown or not. If so, and I come back as here to break even, that would be my rule. And if this was not over 50% drawdown and it came to break even, I would have kept the trade open, and then it basically failed. So this would have been probably a full stop. But again, first of all, and in first place, this is not a trade that I would have taken because of what I explained here earlier on this candle close below the EMA. So at this point, we are having price going below this point. So this is something I would have to do, adjust the containment line if I would be willing to look for an entry out of this MMB4 here, as it has not been validated yet. And there's even something that we can do, as price kind of stayed here for a while and then made its way to the 20. I can use what I call an internal containment line, which is basically just a containment line, not from the initial high, but from a specific point, in this case this high, before some sort of well-defined flush, such as the one that we are seeing here from this point up to the 20 EMA. So now we have to see if there is something else that could be worth considering. So price keeps on going to the downside. At this point, there was a strong move to the downside below the EMAs, but now we see price kind of reclaiming the EMA. So if there is some sort of move, a clear move to the upside and a well-defined double MB entry, there would be a reason for me to get an entry. So at this point here, we see price going above the EMAs, above rising EMAs, getting above the containment line. So now if we have some sort of pause here, this could be an entry opportunity for us. So now here there was some pause, as we can see. So this would be a valid buy stop. In this case, maybe something that I do not like that much is that, well, let's say I consider this as MB1, and then the other MB that I have is up here. So they are kind of apart one to the other. That's something that I do not like very much. And yeah, no, I would say that's it. Here we are again above rising EMAs. We are getting above this SMA, which is, I believe, a 50 SMA. So besides the fact of this, and that we do not have the double MB close to each other, I mean MB1 and MB2, and due to the fact that I saw, in this case, buyers come in to stop the sellers that were trying to push price lower from this point here, I would say I would be willing to take some risk here. So my 0.5, in this case, what I would do is I would put my stop loss at this point here, as if I keep it here, which is sort of the usual risk that I take. I am not, well, yeah, you could say that we are kind of below the rising EMAs, but well, I am not that much comfortable with this, especially because we had a strong move, in this case here, to the upside. So there's a chance that we see some sort of retracement here before the move occurs. So at this point, I believe, let's see, if I move the stop loss down here, what that would mean, that would give us some chance in case price wants to make a wick here and come back on the EMA. So yeah, I think that's the setup that I would take. So my buy stop would be here at this point. I'm just gonna bring this one a little bit above this high. So let's see how it goes from this point. So price stays around our entry price, goes above. This is still not a 50% drawdown, so we wouldn't have closed at break even. We will let this play, and I will basically wait to see a reaction from here. If we get down, at least I would like to see a close above this high here for a possibility to close at break even. Now if we extend, this is something interesting. If I extend this containment line over here, what I see is that I am currently getting some bounce out of it. So as I am not above this, which is the original containment line, there's a chance that we can start seeing some bounce back from it. That's a possibility. As in this case, we decided to get the entry out of this internal containment line, but as soon as we get to the original containment line, there's a possibility to get some sort of bounce. So that's a chance. that would happen. In this case, we are getting back below entry point. So we're kind of staying there. Now this is important. If we keep here above the containment line, that would be kind of a nice sign. So let's try to see. So at this point, we had price coming back here. Now we are getting above, but we still need to see some sort of retracement and then a move above. So at this point, I would say we're getting some sort of retracement into the 5 and then a close above. So at this point, I would say right here on this candle, I would put my stop loss here to break even. So there we are. And now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna place this trade up to 3R, which is what I usually look for. So right now the trade is at around 1R. So let's see if there's a validation of MMB4, which would be at this point. That's something which is, again, discretionary, but that you need to consider. Here we are basically at the end of what we consider would be this bullish cycle. So we could see certainly some validation of this MMB4 and a move upwards. But based on our system, what we consider is that even if this MMB gets validated, that we were gonna see some kind of flush. So there's again something discretionary, but someone could say, well, as this is basically MMB4, what I'm gonna do is place my full TP here. This would be a 1.3R. Maybe that's not interesting for someone. Basically, that has to be something according to the trader's system. So here, what I am gonna do is just let this play further to see what happens. So we are still in, and now I believe we came, not yet, and now we came to our entry point, which means this would have become a break-even trade. So at this point into the session, I'm just gonna record this one here. We are at $1.2R, which was our first trade, and then at a break-even trade. So this is where we are at this time. Just gonna Again, show this one only on the seconds time frame. Okay. So yeah, in this case, we almost came here to the high of MMB4, but then came back. And now we are kind of basically coming below the EMAs. So there would be actually no way for us to look into a trade, as this one is kind of failing. So let's play price there. So here we had some reclaim of the EMAs, but then again we come back. So due to the point where we are here, my expectancy would be here to see some deeper flush into the 10 or the 20 EMA before we see some new construction or some new buildup of a bullish cycle on the validation. So let's see how it goes from here. So price starts to play up to stay inside this range. You can see there's some sort of box here. Now price comes below the EMAs. It's coming below the 5 on the context time frame. So we see some buyers reaction here. Out of this point, we were around here and we had some buyers stepping in. But again, the move was not sustained, and now again we are seeing sellers come in and bring price below the EMA on the validation. So at this point, I would place a label here as a momentum MB on our context time frame. So now the question is whether we see a reaction out of, let's say here, the 20, or if it wants to flush deeper into the, out of the 10, sorry, I said, here's the 10 EMA, or if we will see a deeper flush into the 20 before we see price making some sort of, in this case, some sort of move to the downside and then some consolidation before we see a move to the upside. So that's something that we have to wait to see what occurs. So all of this is basically waiting time for us, as we have price below the EMAs on our validation time frame. So this would be the first time that then we see, in this case, what we could say is a reaction or a bounce from the 20 EMA. So here you could say there was some kind of accumulation here and now an MMB buildup. For me, this is usually too early. If we see the EMAs, we normally have, when price goes above them and then below, price comes first to the 5, then to the 10, then to the 20. And now here, as we are just getting the first reaction from here, we see that the 20 is above, and then we have the 5, and then we have the 10. So the EMAs are basically all around. That's not a smooth or a nice configuration of the EMA. So that's again one reason you could add to your rules in order to stay out and wait to see if this is really gonna be the start of a bullish cycle. So I wouldn't be following this here. Someone could say, well, this is an MMB1 and it's coming back to the EMAs. Well, sorta, you could say. this way. This would be the containment line here when price comes from here to here, but the EMAs are not, for me at least, in the right order, so I wouldn't just skip this one. So let's see how this one would go. And as you can see, this would have fully failed here. So let's keep on watching. So now it's a matter of waiting to see, considering this as a whole stage one. Now we have to see if price wants to go deeper into, in this case, the 20, or if it's gonna go above to start a new bullish cycle on the validation from this area. So what I will do at this point is I am gonna consider this high here as a possible accumulation MB, and I'm gonna just put a question mark to the right of it because it's not validated yet. I will just wait here to see if this high gets a candle close above it, so there it would be validated. But this is just for me to kind of clearly see what I am looking for, what I am expecting to happen, and if not, well, this is just sideways price action for me. So price keeps on inside that range. It's still inside this range here. It did not break or did not close above the high. Still inside the range, kind of inside stage one, all on here. So it keeps on basically playing inside that area. So now I'm gonna pause for a minute. Now this accumulation MB becomes a validated one. You could say at this point here with this candle, or due to the fact that this one validated but then again came under the EMAs, you could consider this whole movement as MB1 and then here MB2. So this one here would be the right point to call for an accumulation MB, which is what I am gonna do. That's why I remove the question mark. So this becomes now a validated accumulation MB. And from this point onwards, what I am gonna do is I'm gonna wait for a pause here on our validation and a flush for a possible double MB buildup. So we are getting at this point right at the session high, which was here. So it's not strange to see some kind of pause here, which would be well aligned to what we are looking for before this high gets over with a candle high, and this would be a validated MMB1 on our context time frame. So that's basically what we are looking for. Let's wait a little bit longer. Now we are seeing some sort of momentum MB1 from this high. That's why I'm putting here this label. And let's take a look at the entry time frame. We would draw a containment line from this high. You could say so as price came here down to touch the 20, this would have been your containment line at that moment. So this was MMB1. Here there was no MMB2 as we were below the EMAs and right at just below the containment line. So there was no entry at this point. But at this high, you could argue that there could be some sort of entry out of here. I'm just gonna be drawing MMB1 and then here MMB2. So this is a valid setup. For me, just the one thing that I do not like is, I just said this with a previous example, that here we are having again price moving below the EMAs. But well, it's a valid setup. In this case, we have to make the decision if this is an A+ setup for us or not. In this particular case, due to the fact that we are at this high, I would probably wait at least for a flush into the 20 before I start trying to get in. As for me, this setup would kind of fail or just stay here playing around. So that's again preference. It's a valid again setup in terms of what we look for: an entry with a buy stop above the containment and above rising EMAs. But well, there are in this case things that you have to consider to see if a trade is fully valid and a quality trade for you, or if this is something that you decide to pass just to try to wait for a much better setup. So let's see how this would have gone here. So here price would have even gotten below. So this would have been your MMB2. This still would be a valid entry point. This buy stop here through this high. And then would have come back again. So as you can see, there's a lot of back and forth here. Price going above the EMAs, then below, then once again at them, below, above, below. So this is not clear price action at the moment, so I'm just gonna skip any possible setup out of this area before we can see something that becomes much more clear. So we're having all of this price inside this area, which can be considered some sort of stage 1. Price slowly moves to the upside, and then once again starts to move to the downside here. We are still inside MMB1. This one has not been validated on this move. So what I have drawn here is a containment line from this point here. Just taking into account that we had some sort of flush and price coming back to the 20. So this is some sort of flush inside of MMB1. So just let's continue watching it. So this here, you could say it's also some sort of valid setup through MMB1 here, and then MMB2 here. So if we get a buy stop above this point, that could lead to some sort of entry. Now let's take a look at the stop loss that we would place here. If we use the usual risk, this is where we would put it. So it's below the rising 20, so I would say it's a good risk. So let's see if this one gets tapped in. That would be a tap in at this point, and let's see how that goes from there. So we are getting into our expected direction here. We had some move to the upside, then a retracement. Now if we at this point get above this high, that would become a break-even trade. We are still going down. So we came above this high. We had a move here, a retracement, and a move. So yeah, I would say that at this candle close here, this one above this high, I would be willing to put my stop loss to break even right here. So this becomes a free trade at this time. So what is it that we are looking for? We had this MMB1, which has not been validated yet. So it would be good for us to get over this point here with a close above it here to have this MMB1 validated. So we're kind of moving towards the right direction. And then here as well, we are on this candle, which is currently building, and we still haven't been able to validate MMB1 on our context time frame. So if this one keeps on moving upwards, it would be nice in order for us to have this MMB1 fully validated. So let's keep on see how price develops from here. So now we have, similar to the previous case that we discussed, we are having here, you could say, a candle close, or this one here, this would be a candle close below the EMAs on a move that could certainly go bearish due to the place where we are right now on the chart, and there could be certainly some reaction here with selling coming in, but based on specifically the price cycle, which is what we follow on our system, and we are basically looking forward to validate MMB1, which is basically a close on the 1 minute above this high, which is this one. I would give it some time here to see it develop, or if it wants to come back and get me out, that would be a break-even trade. And this is what happens in this case. Comes back and takes me out as a break-even trade. So I'm gonna let's write it down here. I believe this is the third entry that we have on the day for a new break even. Okay. In this case, we came up to 0.9 R, so a little bit less than 1 R. So it was, in this case, our choice and our decision to let the trade develop. And in this case, it came to our break-even point. Now from here, it once again moved into our expected direction, which is to the upside. And now we are getting, finally here, MMB1 was validated through this candle close around here after the break even, and then we are still again moving for above. But again, as I said before, it's good to take a look at what happens afterwards, but in this case we cannot modify our rules just because of what happened with one trade. So our rule in terms of how we handle this stop loss here, moved from the original point to break even, was the right choice to make in this case. So at this time, we had MMB1 on our validation here. It was validated through this candle close above. Then we had some move a little bit to the upside. Then some sort of flush here on the 1 minute through this one big candle. So at that time, if we just were expecting to get some reaction from here, we would be drawing a containment line. Yeah, I would say probably this would have been our containment line. This would not have tapped us in. And then price moved to this point here, came below the 20 EMA on the validation, then came once again above, and maybe, yeah, a buy stop through this point would have been valid. And then this one could have probably became a loss, I would say, because as we got tapped in here, we got into drawdown. Just let's use the same setup here just to have a much more clear idea. The tap in would have been here, So price made this move, came here up to this point. I'm pretty sure this is one of the trades that I took, and this was a loss for me actually. So I'm gonna just draw this one here. It was valid in terms of what we had here, which was a flush. But it was kind of weird because the MMB1 was here. So as it was validated, it made this move once again. And I was thinking this is part of MMB1, and then again made a move a little bit higher, and then a new flush here. So at this point, we should decide if this is gonna be MMB2, or probably because of the way it's moving, it's still part of MMB1. And then it made this double MB, which again is valid, and the entry was at that point. And then we had a move here, which was 50% drawdown, but we did not have the chance to close right at break even, so just a little bit forward, and from there it moved into our stop loss right at this point. Yeah, so maybe the reason why we should have skipped this one is because of after the validation of this MMB1, price still kept on inside this same small area, instead of making a well-defined move to the upside of the EMAs and then a comeback to them. So maybe that's a reason for us to stay out. But in terms of what we look for, in terms of where the C and the C2 are located, the flush, the double MB buildup, this is still a setup that could be considered valid. Maybe not the best, but well, in this case, this should be somehow considered valid. So let's consider we took that one and just write here the result that we should have had on this one, which is a -1 for the fourth trade of the day. Now we are failing here on the validation. We are getting some reaction from here, which is basically the 5 on our context time frame. Now we have to give it some time to see how this would develop from here. If you see this as an accumulation, this as an MMB1, here you could say there is some sort of MMB2 buildup. So let's draw a containment line at this point. We are having price at the 20. And now we are seeing price closing below. It seems it was closing below. Now let's see. So what we have here is a flush again on what we could have considered as an MMB2, an MMB2, as this one was an MMB1. And from there, we had price flushing into the EMAs with a close below, but then right away we had this price action making price go above the EMAs and above rising EMAs. So if there is any sort of buy stop above this high, this would be a valid place for us to look into a trade. Let's see if that occurs or not. That would have occurred. So let's see how such a trade would have played out. That would have been the tapped in of that buy stop, and our stop could be there, which is right below the EMAs. And in this case, this would have been a break-even trade. Why? Because we had a tap in, then an immediate move of price towards our stop. Our stop was not tapped in, it was protected by placing the stop loss below this below the EMAs, and then I came back to break even. So this trade would have been a break even based on my rule of breaking even if price makes an over 50% drawdown and then comes back to break even. So this is a break even, the fifth trade of the day. So let's keep on looking at that one. In this case, again, you can see that this is the usefulness of this rule. In this case, this saved me a stop. In case I would have still kept the trade open, this would have come back to the stop. So let's keep on watching. So price is making some sort of again, you could say a flush inside this MMB1, which was reacting from the 20. So there was a move of price going away of the EMAs and then coming back to them. So this here could be considered as a valid flush. So this one here as well could have been a trade opportunity, looking for price to keep on going higher. So that one. So let's see if this one is a tap in or not. That would have tapped us in. and that would have been a loss due to the fact that it tapped us in at this point here, gave us some movement on our specified direction, and then basically moved away from the entry point and never came back, and moved directly into our stop loss. So this was again a trade out of MMB2 here on the validation, and this inside flush that we had from this point up to the 20, and this was a double MB that we had over here, but in this case it was a failed one. So I'm gonna just write it down once again as a -1. This one here as well as a -1. So what I'm seeing right here is a lot of, again, back and forth, not truly clear price action, not truly clear momentum cycles being developed. So at this point, what I am just gonna do is wait to see if this is gonna fully fail, so that we can see some sort of flush on the context time frame, or if it's gonna make an impulsive move to the upside and a clear new cycle can be developed out of new stage 1 into momentum MBs. So that's basically what I am gonna be looking for at this time. So now price seems to be flushing on the context time frame, and we're getting price moving below the EMAs here on the validation. We had basically this flush on the context and a bounce from the 20, which is coming from here. Now we have to wait to see if a new cycle is gonna build here, or if this is gonna continue to the downside based on where price is right now at the C. So here we had some sort of accumulation through this high. Then we had, I'm gonna just label this to be fully clear. This is an accumulation MB, which was validated, and then came this new high, which would have been MMB1, and currently we're here on this flush, which is right here. So let's wait to see. So price goes below the EMA, closes below, and then makes its move down below the EMAs, probably as part of a deeper flush on the C. Again, back and forth, price goes over, under the EMAs. So mostly price action to stay away off. So this price action is very poor. We are getting, or we are flushing into the 20 on the context time frame as part of this MB, which you could argue if it is MMB1, the same one, or if it's MMB2. I would say based on the type of move it made, I would give it the consideration to label it as an MMB2 on the context time frame. So then it had this flush into the 20, it stayed there, and as we had a close, you could say above this high, or for me even above this high, any of those, this would become a valid accumulation. So let's see if that would give any sort of entry. If this becomes an MMB, this is a clear move of price away from the EMAs, and now we have to see if there is any valid flush that would came at least into the 20. So we're getting close to the 20, we're touching, I believe, the 20 on the V time frame. And what I was gonna draw here was a containment line, maybe even here. Was hard to draw in this case. After we had this touch, we would say, well, this could be a valid entry. Or the other opportunity could have been around here. Then price just wanted to go deeper, came into the 20 and through it, and goes, in this case, below the EMAs on the validation. Seems to be looking for a test of the 20 on the context time frame right here. We're getting some reaction out of the 20 on the context time frame. Once again, some sort of accumulation, then price moving away from the EMAs. Weekly price action. We're getting at 4 p.m. New York. So weekly price action there. Yeah, I was looking at this move here out of this flush on the validation. So we had some sort of accumulation into an MMB1, into an MMB2 or MMB2, and then a flush from here to the 20 right here through this containment line, and then maybe a buy stop above this high. So this one would have given a pretty nice result, but probably out of some, I don't know, news or anything, any comment that came at this point. But yeah, I just wanted to see if there was some sort of valid entry, and there was actually. Here was an MMB1, MMB2, and we even had some internal double MB here, which was extra confirmation. So actually it was a nice trading opportunity right there out of this probably MMB2/MMB3 flush, and then from here throughout this containment line and this double MB with inside double MBs. So that would have been a very nice result out of there. So yeah, at this time of day, I normally wouldn't be trading. So I'm just gonna let this play until the end of the session to see if there would be anything interesting coming in, but I'm not. Yeah, and there's nothing else to be presented. We're actually 10 minutes away from the end of the session. So that's it. In this case, on this session, we would have had 3 break-evens, 2 losses, and 1 trade with a plus 1.2. So basically, we would get out of this day or close the day with a minus 0.8 R results, or in almost 1 R loss on this day. So it's relevant just to show that there are days when we will be closing red, when we will be getting our losses, but that's part of the process. And what's relevant and important here is that we follow our rules in terms of following the system that we have, taking the trades that present themselves clear based on our given rules, and then managing the trades based also on the rules that we have developed. So this is it for this session on Monday, August 4th, 2025.